discussion or subjects we're dealing with today?
We do. We actually do.
So you have the questions, right?
I do.
Okay,
I
all right.
do.
Okay,
So
I'm good.
let's get us all set up. I'm gonna get on the computer and do the thing that we normally do, and that is invite everybody to watch.
Yes.
So if you have your phone, you can do the same thing. Invite everybody to watch. As soon as you go to the Black Coffee page, we're live already. So I always go on the live first, and I allow a couple minutes, like 2 minutes going live where we're not doing anything. And that's to give the viewers time to see that we're live and to tune in. That way we don't just start talking right away. you know. So, yeah, so that's what I do there. I want to get my because we're using my phone, I can't go in and see. So let me go into the page and go and see what's happening. No, I wonder if it's because I am administrator that I can't go in the way I want. Okay, there we go.
Oh, just a minor correction. The proper reference to me as title is chairman, because we've been referring to you as executive liaison.
Okay.
That's the executive position that you're in.
Okay.
The chairman presides over a governing body,
All right.
not running the day-to-day operations. That's
Okay.
what you do.
All
You
right.
know. And the chairman's job and the governing body's job is to be very active in raising money and resources for the party.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's involved in that. But the board, the governing board, is actually the guide for that. And my job as the chairman is to compel them to fulfill their duties and responsibilities as a governing board.
Okay.
Whereas the executive is responsible for implementing the approved policies of the party.
All right.
And as the executive, you would also, now, the board, you would certainly be a regular attendee at board meetings.
Right.
The issue is, will you be a voting member? That's what the board has to decide.
Okay. All right. I know that what we do when it comes to matters of things directly related to me, that I probably would not be able to, cast on anything with that. And other organizations.
I'm not sure what would be related to you personally. Because as the executive, you would be expected to make proposals to the board to be incorporated into our operating policies.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're on the front line, so you see clearly where what things need to be addressed and so forth. Now, on questions of, say, your salary,
That's probably.
you wouldn't be able to vote on that.
Yes. That part I am aware of.
Or say, when we're physically strong enough, obviously the executive would need, say, a travel budget
Yes.
for him or herself
Right.
to attend relevant events, conferences, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, you would need hotel and meal and travel allowances, and that should be incorporated into an annual executive. Well, in my case, I had an executive compensation plan that dealt with my salary plus any bonuses. Then I also had, as a part of that plan, executive travel. And it allocated so much money for continuing education, attendance at conferences, things that contribute to the professional development of the executive.
Okay.
And so that would be incorporated into the overall executive compensation plan, separate from salary, benefits, insurance, et cetera, that all accrues directly to the benefit of the executive. But there are other expenses related to the executive's role that shows up as a separate line item in the executive compensation plan.
And I had perfect that last time. We had a perfect angle. Now it's now that I have it up right so that we can be live proper. It's not doesn't really have any shot that well. They see me whether they're doing anything. Yeah, I guess we can go live. We can go on and turn on and start talking. We don't have Parker with us today. Said he wasn't gonna be able to do it. So.
I'll put this on silent.
Yeah.
This phone has a way of not ringing until the cameras start rolling.
That's when it
Pissed
maybe
off.
because they know that you're on. That could be it. That could be it.
Alright, now I'll put this on.
And the only thing you have to remember to do is to try to look at that black dot in the phone and make it ready.
Okay, it is now on site.
Vibrate would have still worked out.
Huh?
Vibrate would have worked out. It would have worked out as well. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Black Coffee Wake Up Hour. We just give everybody a few minutes to share the video and invite your friends to watch. Facebook has it where you can have a watch party, and we've been doing that ourselves with all the other smart devices that we have so that we can get more people in the conversation. I'm Dr. Shantae. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Black Coffee Political Alliance. And here to my right, your left, is our visionary and founder of Black Coffee, Dr. Laverne Murphy.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Glad to have you with us today. We got an awful lot to talk about. Looking forward to the conversation.
And it seems it's that way every conversation. There's so much to talk about. And I will personally be glad when the political season is over so that we can actually start getting into the education of politics and the things that we want our viewers, our members, our subscribers to know as it relates to politics. This is a discussion that African American people are disinterested in. Some, not all, of course. There's a lot of apathy when it comes to that. A lot of us are jaded. We've been disappointed a lot as it relates to the topic. Nonetheless, it's still very important to have the conversations, to get into the misconceptions, to address the myths, and get everybody re-educated. We just want to remember our 4 E's. We're here to educate, and in some cases, re-educate the Black voter. We're here to engage the voter. We're here to encourage the voter. And we're here to empower the voter. We have a voting bloc of 30,000 members and growing, and we want all of you. Please check out my personal page, Dr. Shantae. I have a video speaking about membership into the New Life movement and all of the moving parts that are affiliated with it. So I go into more details there. We do want to try to stick to our time constraints for the wake up hour. Again, don't forget to like, follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. The hashtag is Black Coffee Bop. So you can find us at Black Coffee Bop on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. The hashtag is always Black Coffee Bop. So you'll know that it's us because there are some companies that might actually be coffee companies. So we want you guys to be able to find
We're not a coffee company.
So we definitely want you all to be able to find us across social media and the internet with any endeavors, initiatives we have. We want everyone to stay connected. So I always like to take a little time at the beginning of the hour to remind everybody about all the platforms where you can find us. What I'll go over very quick, some of the announcements that we have going, the announcements part of the segment. I just want to remind everybody about the New Year's Eve party that will be hosted by myself and a good friend of mine. Shout out to Crystal from Fit and Fine LLC. You can find her on Facebook at Fit and Fine LLC. For this event is not just an opportunity for all of the businesses that are associated with the Bop Business Center to come and have a good time and socialize with one another, but it is also a fundraiser. It is raising funds for all of the initiatives that are involved with the New Life Movement Ministries, Bop Project 5000, Black Coffee Political Alliance. We have an agriculture group as well. So we go into all of those details on our website, bopproject5000.org. So come out New Year's Eve, 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. We have tickets on sale at Eventbrite. So you can go to my personal Dr. Shantae page for the event, and I believe Mr. Roe Davis also has posted the event on his page as well. So we want to let everybody know about that because that is in 2 weeks, and we look forward to seeing everyone come out for that. Next year, Black Coffee Political Alliance will host its own fundraiser, and that is tentatively scheduled for February of 2019. The next thing that we want everybody to keep their ears out for is in May of 2019, where it is not just Black Coffee, but everything that we do. You know, it is our initiative to the pipeline to Africa. You all may have seen a video before where we invited Dr. Marvin King from Chicago State University. She is the coordinator of global studies there at the university. There's a much longer title. I don't remember all that she does. And they are currently in Nigeria now, if I'm not mistaken. And they want, yes, as of the 8th of this as of the 8th of this month. They'll be there for an entire week. We plan to do something similar, so we can't wait for them to come back and share with us everything that they've done over there this week so that we can form our own pipeline to Africa experience with a, I guess what we want to call it, not a seminar, but what do you call those? What is the fancy word to call those events? You guys have it every September. What do you call it?
Oh, the summit.
Summit. There we go. We're going to call it a summit. You know, so.
That's a good name.
Yeah. And basically we want to just take Project 5000, the New Life Movement Ministry concept to Africa and build the same things that we're doing here with the Blackficent Mile and all of the small businesses that we incubate here at the Bop Business Center, and take that model to Africa and have a direct pipeline and relationship with Africa and the countries there. So those are some of the things for June.
And that's very, very important because, see, what we're really talking about here is forming a transatlantic alliance between us as descendants in the diaspora from Africa,
yes,
and those indigenous Africans who are already there. We had another young man who came back from Ghana just yesterday.
Okay.
And he brought back with him as a souvenir and gift to Roe some garments manufactured in Ghana.
Okay.
Beautiful Afrocentric wear, and as soon as I saw it, I was so impressed. I tried to get one for me, but he only brought one back for Roe. So
okay.
I placed my order. We
Right.
previously, about 10 or 12 years ago, Roe and some other members of the New Life Movement Ministries traveled to Mozambique. There he brought back a number of garments that was produced there. And the merchandise was just superb. And one of the things that we here in this country know so little about is the economic advances of many African nations. And so the transatlantic alliance seeks to find the time, as we're doing now with Dr. Marvin King,
Yes.
and to travel to, see, we have to first think out that Africa is a continent, not a country.
Yes.
And we often think of it like we're talking about Africa as a country.
Right.
Africa is comprised of 53 countries, going all the way to the northern tip of Africa, where you have countries like Israel, Egypt, Ethiopia, etc.,
Yes.
all the way down to the southern tip, where you have places like South Africa and other countries at the southern tip, and then everything in the middle between the north and the south. And so it's important that we become acclimated to it, because we, unlike other groups or ethnic groups, if you're Italian, you maintain a strong bond with your native country, which is Italy.
Yes.
If you are an Israeli Jew, then you maintain strong ties with Israel. You see that as your homeland. If you're an Egyptian, and I can go on and on and on.
Yes.
And so we're the only people in the diaspora that has a very limited connection spiritually and politically and economically with our motherland. And we certainly need to change that, because if you understood the volume of commerce being done by African nations today in the world, and you and I are sitting here with a direct connection to them, and we have not developed any linkages, and I'm not saying we haven't developed any, because there are many brothers and sisters here in this country that's doing business with Africa.
Yes.
The thing that we want to do is expand the basis upon which that trade is occurring. Not done purely on an individual level, and we encourage those who have done so individually to continue. At some point, we want a larger base of linkage and trade alliances with not just African countries, but many countries around the world that produce products or offer goods and services that would be beneficial for us to get in on the ground floor, so
Yes.
that we can begin to build small businesses in our community under those kind of trade relationships. And so that's an important part of what this is really all about.
And we certainly can't wait till she gets back. I can't wait till Dr. Margaret King returns with all the information she has, and I think she'll have a better way to incorporate us and all the initiatives that we do here, so that we can establish that
I'm sure she
pipeline.
will. Yeah,
And we certainly want to extend that invitation. If you are anyone, manufacturer, black-owned business, manufacturing any type of goods,
right.
you know, you certainly want to be in the conversation, because having that direct access drives down your overall cost, especially if you're getting any type of raw materials or anything from Africa. That direct access will cut down what it costs you to get it manufactured and produced here, and then in turn you can reduce costs for consumers, so that those of us that are trying to circulate the black dollar, and I mentioned that in the video too, for the critics, we know that the color of printed money in this country is green, but what we mean by the black dollar is those green dollars in the pockets of people of color, and being able to circulate those dollars within our communities and our businesses.
That's when it becomes a black dollar.
Yes.
See, the color of the paper is irrelevant.
Yes.
What determines its color is how we organize that dollar, and most importantly, how we apply it to advance the interests of black people in black communities. And in our system, when we talk about the New Life Movement's dues system, we refer to that dollar-a-day commitment as committing the black dollar to what we call black cotton economics. And black cotton, people say, well, cotton is not black, cotton is white. You know? I said, well, that depends on how you define the color. If you define the color in terms of who labored to produce it, you will find that very little of America's cotton was white. It was black people out there in those fields in the excruciating heat and the long, strenuous hours that produced that raw material that resulted large part in America's economic greatness. It was black people in those fields producing that white cotton, as they called it. And I said, no, if you look at the black bodies that was in those fields, that was cotton the color of white, but that was black cotton you was looking at.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about when we're talking about the pipeline to Africa when it comes to businesses, goods, and services. But be on the lookout for those that are interested in going over there next time. We missed the trip where she's in it right now. They'll be back Saturday. So we really want to just plant that seed. This is for May of 2019. I know we got a little long-winded on that part, but that is part of our announcements for next year, things to be looking forward to. Now, June of 2019, some of the initiatives that we're going to be at the forefront of the New Life Movement Ministries are the Juneteenth activities and the Buy Black Parade in honor of Dr. Webb Evans. So we kind of want to coordinate where we can get that going, where it will be on the Blackficent Mile, what we have proclaimed to be 79th Street, starting in the Chatham neighborhood. It is now called the Blackficent Mile. I know there's a lot of stigma when it comes to 79th Street, when it comes to even black people, where they don't want to come to 79th Street. They don't want to see, but we want to invite you guys to Blackficent Fridays. It's every Friday here at the Bop Center, 644 East 79th Street. Blackficent Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., a brunch-like mixer where we're inviting all kinds of small black businesses, black interest groups, black leadership groups, so that we can all get in a room together, meet one another, know who's doing what and where. And because we are taking businesses out of the Bop Center and into those vacant storefronts on 79th Street, going by the Black Wall Street model, that's why we are calling it the Blackficent Mile. And you will start to see how in the regentrification process of this neighborhood that we're going to be at the forefront of that, and we're going to have a seat at the table as opposed to being outside begging for the jobs once the city decides, because the city has already decided that Chatham is the next neighborhood. We're just trying to bring everybody here. Don't be afraid to come out here to see with your own eyes what is going to be going on here. You want to be at the front of this, not at the tail end when it's too late for you to kind of get in and get the best deal, to get the real estate.
You want to be a part of guiding this, not following it.
Absolutely.
So when you're guiding it, you're at the front of the parade. When you're following it, you're at the tail end.
Yes.
So we want you here. And in fact, let me just say, even the negative stigma that 79th Street has endured over the past several decades is because people like yourself stop frequenting your own neighborhood. And so we want to change that, because we now have, as Dr. Shante mentioned, Sister Cassie with the Black Mall and others who have come through our center is out there now on 79th Street, facing the general public and demonstrating what it is that we're able to do when we come together as one community to do it.
Yes, and you've seen it happen over there on the west side, northwest side, where Cabrini Green used to be. You look over there now, looks nothing like, Candyman. That movie looks nothing like that. You think about the West Loop area where they used to have Jewtown every Sunday over there. Now they've kind of pushed them over to Maxwell Street, but if you look over there, it's beautiful. You look at the South
They
Loop.
pushed them far away from Maxwell Street.
Now they did?
Yeah, Maxwell Street
I'm
is
not
beautiful
up to date.
now.
Yeah, and then, so,
There's no hot dog stand on the corner of Maxwell Street and Hall Street no more.
Yeah, so then you think about the South Loop where the Ickies used to be. I mean, look at over there now what they've done. They got the Marriott Marquis. So It's happening, and they are looking at Chatham. So for those of you that's feeling like, oh, I don't want to touch 79th Street, they are looking at it, and we're inviting you to come here so that you can plant a flag somewhere, because we want this community to be left to us. We don't want to get pushed out of the community, outpriced out of the community to be able to live. We want to get the business infrastructure. We want the real estate. We want to be owners, you know, and the more of us that becomes owners, then now we're paying into the property taxes that are going to feed into better school systems. Everybody keeps running away from it without really understanding, and that's why the Black Coffee Wake Up Hour exists, so we can bring all of these issues to the front and help people place together where this falls. You know, maybe you have another way to articulate.
You know, let's think about just a little bit of history here, because it is so important.
History is important, yes.
When you look at Chicago, as is the case with all urban industrial centers, they was built and designed to accommodate manufacturing industries. Mm-hmm. This is why city blocks look like they do.
Yes.
And I have a perspective on this because I happen to have had the benefit of being born a country boy.
Okay.
Where there were miles of land between houses. And when I moved to the city as a small boy, I could look out my bedroom window and literally touch the bedroom window of the neighbor next door. And as being a country boy, I never got in trouble for walking on grass.
Okay.
And it took me a while to understand what that was about.
All right.
But then I come to understand that in the city, people on the blocks had so little grass until they manicured and made it perfectly, and the last thing they wanted to do was to walk on it.
Yes.
Well, being a country boy, where I come from, there was nothing but grass. All living things walked on it. The cows walked on it, the dogs walked on it, the people walked on it, everything.
Oh.
But more importantly, what we need to look at is that the industrial industries here in Chicago in particular were located principally in Chicago. And so when the city was being designed and how they would accommodate the workforce, the size of the workforce was so enormous until they had to configure blocks and lots, L-O-T-S, so that they could get so many houses on a city block. And if you look at the urban configuration, it looks very much like a military base.
Okay.
When you go on a military base, everything is lined up, one block after the other,
Like
and one house within feet of the next house, because people were intended to come here from the deep south and other parts of rural America, and they were going to take up residence in an urban center. And they was coming here to work where? In the factories.
No.
So all of this was designed. Now, here's the opportunity. They set this up to accommodate working class people. But as time went on, the urban the urban concentration left the urban areas, and we saw big industrial companies move their factories overseas. Right here in Chicago, from before my parents arrived up until about 1970, I mean, you didn't have a problem getting a job in a factory here. I mean, you quit one job and go across the street and get another job. But after the riots of '68, we saw a gradual moving away of the industries in urban America.
Okay.
Some of them moved into southern states where there were warmer climates, there were lower taxes, and there were no unions. And so with the industries looking for a cheaper labor force, they tended to move to Central America, Mexico, China, and other places. So what did that do for us who had come here looking for these jobs? Those jobs dried up. Our neighborhoods was directly impacted by it. Now, listen to this. Now these same places that were situated and designed for the industrial industry, now they are going to reconfigure these land masses in these communities to be more accommodating to a highly educated technical workforce. So it don't need to look the same way it looked before. And they will design these new communities to appeal to a different demographic. And those of us who are here now unless we can get up to speed and acquire the skills that will enable us to function in this environment, then we might as well pack our bags now and go to other places in the country more compatible with your skill set and your earning potential. So gentrification is something that we will have to take the lead in, and a part of our ability to sustain ourselves is when we make the decision we will gentrify our own neighborhoods. What do we want the houses to look like? How do we want the blocks to be configured? What businesses and services do we want to service these communities? Yes. This is what we must decide. Then we must get ourselves organized to organize the investment capital, to acquire the real estate, to renovate the real estate, then operate the real estate, to set up the types of businesses we decide that we want to have on our commercial strips to service our needs. We have to think like this and not think that we can continue to progress if we keep acting as we've always acted. And there was a time, and I remember that time, when black people owned and operated all of their retail businesses in the community. All of them.
That's where we're trying to get to.
And we have to get back there, because now you look down too many of our retail and commercial areas in the black community, and it's saturated, dominated with foreign merchants. That was a great mistake on the part of our leadership to allow it to happen. But we ain't gonna sit here and argue and swear over that. Now there's a new leadership coming down.
We know better now, we
Yes.
can do better. So
Exactly.
yes, we don't own the businesses in our community right now, but we are working to change that one city block at a time. So that's why we're always trying to invite everybody to come back on 79th Street. We understand that there's a lot of fear going on with the city, especially with gun violence. And before we move to that topic about gun violence, for all of those who just joined in, this is the Black Coffee Wake Up Hour. We're here every Tuesday afternoon speaking about politics. We have our 4 E's that we, as part of our mission, and that is to educate, engage, encourage, and empower voters again. We understand people are jaded, they're apathetic, they are disappointed in the political process, but we're here to give hope again, and we have strategies now. We have some brilliant minds in the background and behind the scenes, and we're just excited about being able to present that to you all. So be sure that you are following Black Coffee Political Alliance on Facebook. We are at Black Coffee Bop, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So I wanted to interject and remind for those who are watching and for newcomers to the video, this is the Black Coffee Wake Up Hour. So Dr. Murphy, we are in a political season, and for the city of Chicago, we have quite a few, and that is an understatement, mayoral candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I have a 17-page document here for all the candidates that filed, and that includes the mayoral candidates as well as the aldermen. And really quick before we get into that, because Black Coffee Political Alliance is headquartered at the Bop Business Center, 644 East 79th Street, we are in the 6th Ward. So we have 3 candidates in the alderman race, and we will soon be reaching out to each of them so that we can hold a forum for those people who are residents and business owners of the 6th Ward, so that we can have a candid conversation with them, potentially moving into the city council again. So, Dr. Murphy, what are one of the things that I think is going to be, before we go into our opinions about the race, I think it's important to have an educational part, just briefly about an alderman and what an alderman is. What do they represent? What are they supposed to be doing? Because when you look at some of the statistics of these aldermanic races, some of these aldermen, of course I'm not speaking about all of them, but some of them are winning their position with a matter of a few thousand votes, and their wards could have thousands and thousands upon registered
50,
voters.
60,000.
Exactly, and they just don't come out. And like myself, and I'm not proud of this, but like I said, when you know better, you do better. I only came out for the presidential election. I'm someone highly educated, highly credentialed, but did not have the
Political ground.
the interest. I didn't have the interest in politics until it started to affect my money and how I can earn it. So she's paying attention now because they're affecting my bottom line.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to talk to them now. But I didn't go and pay attention to the aldermanic races and all four of these other people. Then we have the county elections and it's so much when it comes. And most of us didn't. We only had 8th grade, the Constitution, learning that. You know, we don't have political science. And if you were like me, grew up in the South Side of Chicago, attending the Chicago public school system back in the 80s, they weren't teaching us about politics or economics or we didn't know about any of those things. So we have no clue.
It is not by accident.
We have no clue.
It's not by accident that the American electorate
Slightly closer.
is totally just disengaged.
Okay.
Totally disengaged. Let me give you an example. This is all people. In 2016,
Okay.
we had 63 million Americans vote for Donald Trump. We had 66 million vote for Hillary Clinton. We had 105 million that didn't vote at all. Now, let's consider what we're dealing with when it comes to the electorate. This is an American problem visiting itself across all ethnic groups. So don't feel that you're out here alone with this, but don't use that as an excuse to keep doing what you're doing. You have 4 levels of government. The most local level of government is called municipal government. Chicago is a
municipal government.
Municipal.
That's local. That's your neighborhood. You know,
Exactly.
and I want to clear that up because a lot of people think the president is supposed to change your neighborhood.
Right.
So that's key word for today, municipal government. Okay, continue.
And given that in your municipal government, your CEO is not the President of the United States. Your CEO is the mayor of the city.
Okay, the
At the
mayor.
next level, you have your county government. County government incorporates or encompasses so many municipal governments that make up the county structure. So if you live in Chicago, you are in Cook County. If you live in Calumet City, Dalton, Linwood, South Holland, Maywood, Broadview, and I could go on and on and on. All of those are municipal governments that make up the county governmental structure. And so all of these different levels bear upon you, and because they do, you have a voice in that government. So here, if you live in Chicago, if you take your address, you are represented in the county government by a county commissioner.
Okay.
And you have so many county commissioners that serve on the county board. If you live in Chicago and you are represented by an alderman is a legislator. They serve in the municipal city council government. And they are the ones that have to come together and vote to pass city laws that bear upon you day to day as a citizen of this city. So your alderman is a legislator. And in the last
Mayor is the executive.
is the executive.
Okay, because
Okay.
this goes back to the part I do remember as far as the different branches of government, the
Yeah.
executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch.
Right,
I remember
right.
those three,
Right.
and those are the balances in government. So when we're talking about city politics, to translate what Dr. Murphy has so eloquently have put it, is basically your mayor is the executive, the aldermen are part of the legislative.
And we have our municipal courts.
Yes.
You hear often him say something about the corporation council.
Okay.
You know. So the one thing that you will find, now let's go to the state government. You have an alderman who represents you in the municipal structure. You then have a county commissioner for each district that the city is divided into. And so you can identify your county commissioner by simply typing your address into the Board of Election system, And what they will spit out to you, they'll tell you, based on your address, who your local alderman is, who your county commissioner is, who your state representative is, who is your state senator, who is your United States senator, and who is who represents you in the United States House of Representatives.
Yes.
So at the top level, the president is the CEO. When you get to the state, it's the governor who is the CEO.
All right.
When you get to the county, it is the president of your county board who is your CEO. And when you get to the city of Chicago, it is the mayor who is now your CEO, which so happens to be the electoral period we're entering into now. With a rather crowded field, we have a number of candidates, I think 20 plus candidates. Now, one of the things I find interesting about the volume of candidates, if you divide this city up, white, Hispanic, and blacks are almost equally a third of the city's population. But when we look at the white participants as candidates, I counted 5. When I looked at the Hispanic side, I counted 2, Chico and Mendoza. When I counted the black side, 1/3, close to 15. Now there has to be a thinning of the ranks, because what that's going to tell you mathematically, and all the opponents will know this, if that field stays crowded till we get to the end of the primary, it will be almost impossible to dictate who's going to win, because it will be so splintered, and it looks like the one side that may have the best chance of having a unified candidate is the Hispanics.
Yes.
Because I believe the Hispanic community will come together and have a conversation with both Chico and Mendoza and going to make a real clear statement. One of y'all got to get the hell out of this race.
Yes.
Because we're not going to divide the Hispanic vote. We need to mobilize behind one.
Right.
I believe on the white side, you have some candidates that today I read that the unions,
I'm trying.
Go ahead.
I read that the unions, SEIU had donated $1 million to Preckwinkle's campaign. And so she's going to have a big war chest, because that's a union. Now remember, unions always line up strongly behind the Democrats. The Democrats is the union's political muscle. But the unions is also the Democrats' political muscle, because unions comprise thousands of workers. If it's the Chicago Teachers Union, who've already endorsed Preckwinkle, the unions are going to line up behind her, and certainly those card-carrying Democratic public officials is going to line up behind the candidate with the greatest resources and look like they got the greatest ability to win. The disadvantage for us as ordinary voters, the Democrats ain't never been our friends. They just happen to have been the ones we blindly vote for. But I have a lot of hope for us, because 75% of us didn't bother to cast a vote in the last mayoral election when Rahm Emanuel ran. Now, I am not suggesting that not voting is a wise position to take, because it is not. Because when you don't vote, that is a vote. The problem is it usually helps the person you wouldn't vote for if you did vote. So we have to become conscious about what we're doing politically. We cannot remain apathetic and say, oh, it don't matter what I do. It does matter what you do. And so these are the things that we have to get ourselves organized around. And then finally, as we go through this election, we have the handicap of making our own best guess here. And we have some strong ideas about who that candidate is based on their experience and their track record of public service, specifically to our community.
Well, at this time, I want to introduce Mr. Roe Davis to the broadcast of the Bot Business Center. So I'll let him introduce himself and talk about the plans. We spoke about it briefly with the New Life Movement Ministries as far as the real estate and what the plans are for it. So we'll let you introduce yourself at this time.
All right. I definitely want to thank Dr. Murphy for that powerful explanation of the things that we need to understand as it relates to this upcoming election. As Dr. Shantae said, my name is Roe Davis. I'm the visionary and co-founder of the New Life Movement, as well as Bot Project 5000. Many of you may know me from my position here at the Bot Business Center. And so, as I look today at the address here is 644 East 79th Street, right here on the new Blackficent Mile. We are on the first mile of miles and miles of thriving Black businesses.
Thank you for clearing that up. We spoke about that earlier, about the negative stigma to coming to 79th Street. So I did put out a call to invite people and welcome them to the Blackficent Friday event that you have.
Yes.
And I want you to explain it a little bit more about the purpose of them coming to any of the events. And it's every Friday.
Right. Well, they say that without a vision, the people perish, which is why it's so important for us to not look at the pain that, we can attribute to streets like 79th, 69th, or any track, 63rd, or any track where our people are concentrated. Our vision has to be bigger than our pain.
Yes.
And so we're very proud to be a major contributor, to be spearheading a project like the Blackficent Mile, where we have envisioned and made positive strides to organize the businesses, the residents, and political operatives in the interest of creating a thriving business district. Right now, we're moving to make 79th in between Cottage and King that first powerful mile, that first step, which every Friday at our event, we talk to people in the community and others who are interested in being a part of this effort, maybe having a business or just want to come out to support, the effort. And we offer that opportunity to the public. And so if you've never been to one, I want to encourage you to come out this Friday. Last Friday, we had Alderman Roderick Sawyer, who came as our political advocate or operative of the Blackficent Mile. So we had a great time. You can find that video on my page, and I believe you can find it on the Black Coffee Political Alliance page. So definitely, we can't be in fear of our own children. 79th Street used to be called Murderers Road, right on Cottage Road. But since the Bot Business Center has been here and we've been able to impregnate this area with positive, thriving, not just surviving, but thriving Black businesses such as the Black Mall, such as Timbo Fly, such as Fresh Start. And now we even have Dr. Shantae here on the Blackficent Mile that is committed to providing preventative and pain therapy and healthcare to our community.
And busy man,
right, all along the way, keeping everybody busy, man. So we are very proud, but none of this matters if you don't participate. Yeah. We have to participate in our own rescue. And that's one of the things that I think that we have to do a better job of as a community. We have to turn the corner of our painful past so that we can have a clear view of a glorious future that I believe that we have the power to bring into existence. But in order for us to do this, I believe that, we have to have a system of salvation. And so that conversation is something that we're working every day at the Bach Business Center with Black Coffee and the businesses who are making the sacrifice to be able to, bring forward. How do we set it such that the next generation wakes up into a new reality? That's going to come because the people like you, me, and all the people who are a part of this effort now and in the future are making a sacrifice today to make that possible.
So for the Bot Business Center, for those that don't know much about it, if you're new to the broadcast, we'll keep it brief because we know some of you are loyal viewers. But for anyone that's new on the feed, if you can just say a few words about the Bot Business Center.
Absolutely. So the Bot Business Center is a co-working shared office space like Regis or WeWork that you may see in some of your more affluent areas like the Magnificent Mile. And what we offer is really primarily four things. We offer virtual office space for people who just need an address. We have plans as low as $50 a month. We have office space for people who need a more dedicated space, 24 hours, 7-day access. We have event space as well as, meeting room space. One of the things that we're excited about, which I want to direct you towards our website at botbizcenter.com, B-I-Z is how we spell biz, is the new services that we offer to help young businesses to get off the ground. We have logos that we do, websites. We have business plans that we can help you to write. We have any number of things that any new business would need, but at an affordable cost. So don't hesitate to visit our website or come to our location to find out more about how we can support the development of your idea. Our motto is we want to bring big ideas to life.
Okay, thank you.
Does he have time to say a little bit about Project 5000?
Because this
That's
is
a
the
major ministry.
Yes, this is part of the real estate part of it that we were talking about the importance of the things that we need to bring and be at the head of in the regentrification process. But we want people to understand how home ownership is important and to get out of the whole idea of just renting, but becoming owners, and how becoming owners can change the realities that they're running away from the neighborhood from. Like, for instance, the bad school system.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Project 5000 is a vision to create 5,000 safe, affordable homes. We believe that home ownership is the key that will bring our communities back into the thriving epicenters that they could be. But in order for that to happen, we have to increase the tax base. Property taxes are directly proportional to the things that fund schools, roads, and parks, and the amenities that we all enjoy. And so when you see communities that have dilapidated structures, you also see communities that have poorly performing schools. And as we know, education is a key instrument of one of those elements that support the growth and development of people. And so we want to look at how we strengthen those systems. But the one thing that I want to caution us to do in this season of our struggle as a community is that when we get our education, don't leave the hood. I want you to figure out how you can bring that education to the hood so that we can move from being just a hood and we can put the neighbor back in our community. And I think that this is really the work of the New Life movement by Project 5000, is that we want to create a very secure, safe, and profitable way for people to invest in their own communities as opposed to having to leave it to find peace of mind. I believe that we're sitting in the greatest wealth trend in history, and that is the restoration and redevelopment of the Black community. That contract is going to go to somebody, and I believe that it should go to the people who have paid the ultimate price.
That's right.
Which is ourselves.
That's right.
And so we want to encourage you.
Whose blood is in
That's right. It's our blood soaked in these streets. So I want to challenge you to see, if you see something wrong in our community.
Come help us fix it.
Come help us fix it. That's the mentality that we have to have. Stop leaving the block to go find another block that's already developed. Yeah, you go there, but at the expense of the opportunity of a lifetime. And we leave the people that we love behind. So, come to 79th Street, come to the Blackficent Mile, and you want to support efforts like Black Coffee Political Alliance, because being a Democrat or being a Republican, and there's an argument between both factions, but in my opinion, we don't want to be either.
That's right.
We simply want to be able to vote in our interests. And if there's not a Democrat or Republican platform that we can endorse, then what do we do to find a window of our own interest? Well, the good thing about Black Coffee Political Alliance is that it's filled with unapologetically our only interest. And so when you align with Black Coffee, you get the opportunity to move beyond whatever obstacles, if you will, there are. And we get the ability to focus on us uniquely. And so that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind. And that's part of why we created the Wake Up Hour, because we need people to wake up, take a sip of that coffee, and cast your vote for an agenda that's going to keep all of our community awake.
And that's the Black agenda. Yes, we call it Black Coffee because when you drink coffee straight, it has a stimulant effect. It wakes you up. We want everybody to stay woke and stay engaged on all of the topics that are pertaining to us.
Right.
We keep looking for what are you going to do for us? What's in it for us? Well, why don't we start defining what that is?
That's right.
And then use our own platform to basically broadcast it to other constituencies. Like, look, this is who we are. This is who we represent, the underserved and the underrepresented. So here we are. We're Black Coffee. Don't forget the hashtag Black Coffee Bot.
Absolutely.
So that's how, so we have a few minutes because it's so.
What time is it now?
It is 2:30 because we should be like in the last 2 minutes of the actual broadcast for the hour. And again, it's just so many candidates to go through, and it's amazing. But I did want you to share, Ro, about a post that you saw.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw a post, and maybe you could share that post to the Black Coffee page at this time. And it showed if you take out the certain candidates, what does it look like for us? And it piggybacks on what Dr. Murphy was saying earlier about that splinter, when it comes to the Black field. I mean, I don't understand it. I made a post before where I said I drove down Cermak going west to go to some suburb, and I took the streets and I saw very little Chicago PD cars and trucks along the way. The lights aren't as filled as it is in their community, and that's because they're politically organized. They are politically organized, so you really have to care about that. But I said that for a reason to say about the post that you saw.
Let me just put this in here because I want the listeners. This is very, very important.
They can't see.
It's
us.
not hard.
They can see Ro right now.
Okay, that's all right. You can hear me. It's not hard for city powers to know where to concentrate police. All they have to do is look at things like dropout statistics, unemployment statistics, welfare payments. That's a desperate community. And people who live in desperation do desperate things. And in order than curing the underlying problem, they want to arrest those who found themselves having to steal a pack of bologna simply because they didn't have the money to pay for it. Because the Bible says, thou shalt not steal. But that's placed on hold when you're hungry.
Yes, that's when you're hungry, that is a desperate act. It certainly is. So, so what I was going to say was if you can post that to the Black Coffee. I know, I'm not in the video. I'm aware you guys can hear me, but you can't see me. It's okay. They saw me in the early part.
I did post it.
Oh, okay, good. Now I want you to talk about it so that people go to the Black Coffee page, look at his post, because this is what he's talking about in the last few minutes. And we're talking to black people. Now, we're not discriminating against anyone else, but this is a conversation that we need to have with black people, because if you notice in all the other candidates, they only have 2 people in the race, and we for mayor, and we got 12 or 15 or whatever the case is. So you really need to pay attention to that and take it to heart. And Black Coffee is going to reach out to all of them.
Yeah.
At some point, you know, we haven't endorsed anybody. You know, each one of us might have a pick that we resonate with. I don't want to use the word like, because we're all moving past our emotions when it comes to these candidates, but actually looking at their platforms, looking at their qualifications. I don't want to say qualifications because the qualification is such a small standard, you know, but at least the executive experience, etc., you know, looking at those things. But if you can go into that post, that'd be great.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I looked in a report that the Sun-Times did. And the Sun-Times had all of the candidates. In fact, they listed the top 16 candidates. And what I found particularly interesting is that while many of us may have our pick, you know, I've got my pick.
I have a pick.
Shantae has her pick. Most of the candidates that we have picked, even though they may represent a lot to us, many of them are way down the totem pole on electability according to this document. And so let me just read this. So Tony Preckwinkle is the #1 candidate. Amalia Inya is #4. Lori Lightfoot is #8. Dorothy Brown, #9. Willie Wilson is #10. LaShawn Ford is #13, and Jamal Green is #11. And then finally, you got Neil Sales Griffin, #15. Now, as much as we may like our particular candidate, and while we're very excited about...
Before you said that, you said this article was based on electability.
Electability.
And who was the article by? So
The Sun-Times.
The Sun-Times. Okay, thank you.
Chicago Sun-Times.
Okay.
Or ChicagoMagazine.com.
Oh.
But you'll find it on the Black Coffee website, I believe. But the article makes an important point, and it seems like the overriding issue that has made a contribution to electability is the war chest. So we may not equate economics and politics, but they certainly understand the power of economics as it relates to politics, because the people who have the least war chest or don't have compensating facts like Neil Sales Griffin, for example, they say that his war chest is less than $10,000, $7,500 to be exact. So he's the last one on the totem pole. So at the end of the day, we really have to look at these things, you know, and we really got to make some tough decisions so that we don't cancel ourselves out. And I think that, you know, I found it really interesting that McCarthy was way up there in the rankings.
What number was McCarthy, if you don't mind sharing?
Let me see. McCarthy was way up there. Now, McCarthy, I saw him on Indigo grinning like a Chester cat, you know, because he's looking for black people to forgive him for Laquan McDonald, you know.
Dr. Murphy, I'm interested till you laughed. I want to know what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I know personally, I found it insulting. You know,
So did I.
I found it very insulting. I know that he has a long history of locking black folks up unfairly and, you know, under his watch. People of color, police brutality. And he got the biggest smile you could ever imagine. And I bet you some of us are going to vote for him. And that to me is the saddest thing ever. But then we got a criticism for every black candidate out there as to why they don't want to support one of those. We got to really get behind this. But I'd be interested to hear Dr. Murphy say a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, I found it funny too that McCarthy would have the gall to run for mayor of this city. given his track record as superintendent of police in this city, notwithstanding the catastrophe of his handling of the Laquan McDonald case. It's akin to when we were on the plantation, they had an overseer. One day the plantation master fired the overseer. The overseer then ran to be the plantation manager. And now that plantation manager is appealing to the slaves for their vote, for him to manage them, given his track record of being in managing them all along.
Right, beating the hell out of us.
So now,
Literally.
but I don't see black people as McCarthy's intended demographic base of support. Remember, 1/3 of this city is white.
Yes.
McCarthy was the police superintendent, and the police force in Chicago is some 16,000 strong. Then when you consider the white sentiment regarding police in this city, it's not the same as the black sentiment. They see the police department as keeping them safe because all the crime is over here, and very little of it is where they live. And so if it's very little where they live, then the police superintendent is doing a good job. Keep it in there.
But here's the thing, you know, and Roland says it too, that it's happening. It's happening everywhere. You know, like this gun violence is affecting everyone, no matter what part of the city you're on. Now, the media may not choose to pick it up.
Well, Dr. Shante, if you look at the specific locations in which this violence occurs, 4 years ago, there was a report that came out that the city of Chicago spent $103 million in 1 year on police overtime. When you read the article, it identified 5 zip codes, 5 police districts where this $103 million was spent. And every dime of it was spent in districts that are predominantly populated by blacks. Now that doesn't say that murders don't occur everywhere, but the point here is, where is the concentration of these killings occurring? And that's almost exclusively in our neighborhoods. And it's not because black people and our young people are inherently criminal. It is because when you read that article, it pointed out some things that were shocking. Highest rate of high school dropouts. Young black males was dropping out at almost a 60% clip. The highest rate of chronic unemployment is in these same 5 districts. The highest number of returning ex-offenders to our communities in these 5 districts. And so the demographic data was clear. So when you read it, one would say, well, damn, if this is the basis for the violence, why did y'all use more police overtime? Why wasn't $103 million spent in them districts to give them a better opportunity to be able to escape the desperation of poverty and not be forced into criminal activity? Sometimes, and you may have some experience with this, when you get broke, you don't have much of a sentiment to be cooperative. The least little conflict can turn violent, not because you had anything to do with the violence, but the person who committed it had been brought to be predisposed to a violent outburst because they see no end to their problem. And the last thing they want is an argument with you because you poor as I am.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make any sense?
I hope it makes sense to the viewers when they're thinking about criminals, when they're thinking about ex-offenders, because when you're looking at the term ex-offender, that is not necessarily someone guilty of a violent crime. You know,
most of them are not violent criminals.
They're not.
Most of them are non-violent offenders.
Yes, you know, but they have that stigma and they have that name attached to them now that in a broader spectrum, people may fear them because maybe they were stereotyped.
Well, when you don't know what the term means, that you're an ex-offender just got out of prison, you playing it safe. He must have killed somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to take a chance Because you don't know nothing about what that
Right.
experience is like.
Right.
You know, except what you watch on TV or read in the newspaper. And the only way you're going to ever know anything about it, and I think most of us do know something about it because most of us got such a person in our family. And most of us can attest that, hey, little Johnny ain't really no bad kid. He just had a tough upbringing.
Yeah.
His daddy was killed when he was 2. His mama had to exist on welfare. He never had nothing. And when he was 12 or 13 years old, little Johnny felt like he had to get out there on that corner and get it for himself.
Yes.
And so this is why we must come home. Because we don't even know our community. We're allowing our community and its reality to be communicated to us, defined to us by somebody who never experienced it either. They just massaging data.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Powerful point.
But we see them right here in the Bop Business Center.
Yes.
We have a young man here now, nice young man. When you talk to him, just a pleasant person. But at the same time, he's communicating his pain. I don't have a job. I don't have a permanent place to stay. And he comes here every day because at least this place represents a place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
A comforting word. And I told him that I would make sure next week that he has at least a couple of days of work. He needs something to look forward to.
Yeah.
But my question to him, how you doing today? You had lunch yet? These are the basic questions we must learn to ask. But we looking in these people's face and ain't got a clue what they confronted with now. Because most of them I talk to, they don't have to next week.
Yeah.
They don't have to tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's why we need your support today.
That's right.
Today, and that's
absolutely today.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I can remind everybody about that black dollar, and Dr. Murphy,
$1 a day.
That black dollar powerful.
Yes.
That
yes,
black dollar, we can take care of that young man and many more like him.
Yes.
Because he's the face of thousands.
Of
He
black
ain't the
men.
only one.
No, he's not.
He's the
He's
face
not.
of thousands.
Yes, it's so many, and then so there was something, and I know we're a little bit over. It's okay, it's our own publication, but to speak on to the gun violence, there are a few people that I know and have had conversations with that's been affected by gun violence, victims of it even, actually, being shot, right? And it's kind of like, what do you make of that? It's almost like we don't want to believe that we're the ones out here doing it. I may have my own little viewpoint. I personally believe that somebody hired is going around doing this to make us look more violent than we actually are. And to some extent, it may be us. We don't know. But it is happening in our neighborhoods more and more, of course, because we have the access to the guns and not jobs. But...
Well, I don't think it would be wise. First of all, let's face it head on. We have a serious violence epidemic within our midst.
Yes.
And we gain nothing by denying that that's the reality, unfortunately, of what we're dealing with. But let me also say that I don't know anyone in our community that's not affected by it. That doesn't mean they've been shot. It does mean they've been affected.
Yes.
And let me tell you how I'm affected. Every time I leave here at night and have to walk to St. Lawrence to get to my car, I'm seriously on guard. I done surveyed the whole pathway to my car. And I'm going to make certain that ain't nothing lurking that I saw move over in one of those breezeways. That's an effect.
It is a fact.
When I go home.
That is called PTSD.
Yeah,
That's what
call
that
it what
is,
you
and I
want.
think we all have a
I
little
call
bit
it.
of that.
I am affected. Don't think I done escaped.
Yes. Yeah.
If I go out at home and I park my car across the street from the house, and I'm like just straight shot to my door. Mm-hmm. When I pull up there, I'm making sure ain't nothing lurking in the gangway next door or through there.
Right.
Because I'm going to get out of the car and close my door. Nothing better not move in my direction in that 40 feet that I got to get to the door. Because all hell going to break loose in there now. Because I got to survive. Got an appointment tomorrow at the Bob Center. So,
right. People got jobs.
so yeah,
they
we
don't
are
know.
affected by this. But
Yes,
what we
we
need
are.
to understand is that the cause of that effect is not the people that we point out as responsible. They're the biggest victims of it. That desperation that young man feels, don't know where he gonna eat tonight, don't know where he gonna sleep tonight, don't know where he don't know how to deal with that. And this is affecting children who have the least capability to be able to resolve
They'll be
those
rational in the
Yes.
face of
Yeah,
it.
in the face of this.
Yes.
The only thing that kid know is he hungry. And the only thing he's feeling, it ain't damn fair that everybody else seem to be eating and I ain't.
That's true.
He angry.
Angry. I mean, black people got
I'm
a lot
serious
to be
now.
Angry and fearless.
about.
I'm serious, man. I'm serious.
You
Now
know,
look, if you feel like your life is threatened, what around you could you fear any more than that?
That's true.
This is what we're dealing with, and this is the kind of frank, on the table conversation we got to have.
So
Because most of
basically-
what I hear is a conversation that tend to suggest we need to do something about these young boys. Yeah, feed them, clothe them, support them,
That's
give them a
basic.
job.
That's
That's all they want.
That's a basic.
And if you read that article about that $103 million spent, you would have found yourself saying, damn, well, hell, you had enough money to solve
feed
all
them.
that violence.
They had enough money to feed all them people. Then,
Yeah.
if that was the case, so police we don't want. We don't want more police.
The police department in his database has a categorization. They got all the gang members, and then they got them classified as who is likely the shooters. They even identified who the shooters are likely to be. So we talking about, I mean, damn, they don't seem to be that effective in one sense because you got 800-900 shooters, but we only lost 612 people. They ain't even shooting one whole person a shooter.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just.
So yeah,
put that out to
somebody
say-
on the north side will get shot. Somebody will walk into a bar and you don't see this happening in none of our bars. You don't see this happening. We don't go in churches and bars and shoot up people indiscriminately. When we shoot somebody, they done did something to us. We ain't just generally mad and we gonna go into the nightclub and shoot up, kill 50 people and wound another 100 and don't know now one of them.
Man, ain't nobody got nothing to do with nothing.
They ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, I just to bring it back to the mayoral candidate, I don't know, McCarthy, we don't want more police, so I think
No to the top cop.
no, we don't want no more police, for the black candidates, what suggestions do you have, and here's a question, what if, and this is hypothetically speaking, what if Black Coffee reaches out to however 13, 14, however many there is, invite them to come into a room, have a candid conversation, and someone does not show up?
Well, I don't know. That means we would never have a chance to hear from them. So how do we make a decision about them? But I think the idea of inviting them out to a candidate's forum would be an excellent idea. And one good question would be, how does each of you reconcile the fact that there are 14 of you vying for one spot? How does each one of you reconcile that what this number really suggests is we're going to divide the black vote into 14, 15 pieces of votes versus another ethnic field that doesn't have that problem?
Right.
I don't know, or that's the question,
See,
basically.
you have Vallis, Fioretti, McCarthy, Daley, Bill Daley, and I might be missing one that's running. By the time we get to before we get to February 26th, that field will have narrowed.
Yeah,
It will have narrowed.
I'm sure.
And ours is gonna narrow too, because I think that too many of them candidates just have too little money.
Yeah.
Although if you really wanted to win, then you will see you don't have the money to win because your poll numbers are going to continue to drop.
So the poll numbers are those, is the money to the campaign, is that a direct relationship? You know, is it directly proportional? How much money they have to fund the campaign to where they're gonna be in the polls?
No. The only way you can tell where they are in the polls is to keep polling the likely demographics that's gonna vote.
Okay.
As you move closer and closer to it, and they keep conducting those polls, you're gonna see a shifting in those numbers.
Okay.
Because as people are exposed to more and more information about the candidates, that's why the money is so important. Because if you ain't got no money, you can't finance getting your face and your message in front of the people. You just remain a name on the list.
On the list.
But don't nobody know you but your close circle of friends and your campaign.
Right. What are your thoughts, bro? You know, about that?
Well, I'm in agreement with Dr. Murphy. I'm just prayerful that they will.
Closer to your left.
I'm just prayerful that the candidates who don't have a chance will drop out sooner rather than later, rather than continuing to divide our interests unnecessarily. And I don't, you know, it's a hard thing to tell somebody don't pursue something, but if you really love Chicago, and I think that all of the candidates claim a great love for our city, then have enough love to see it move forward without you
At the head.
of it.
Yeah.
You know, and put your support.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put your support behind somebody who's got love and a chance at winning.
Right.
And if you think as a black person in this city, and given the caliber of black candidates vying, if you think that our interests as black people would be better represented by a black candidate, then you owe it to yourself to study the field
Yeah.
and figure out who that person
Right.
is. None of us may be able to figure out definitively in a crowded field, but the one thing that we can all embrace is the principle that our chances to elect a black mayor would be far better if all our political capital was behind one candidate.
Yeah. And what
Being a third
what-
of the city,
Right.
I mean, our little third of the city means nothing if we got to spread that third across 12 or 13 people. And I would just hope that those 12 or 13 people humble themselves enough to not, if it's truly about the people and truly about the love of the city, to just be able to accept where they are and, you know, and understand that, hey, you know, you have a future in politics. You know, the desire to do this, that took a lot of courage. I tip my hat to all of them that threw their hats in the ring. It does take courage to get out there, get those signatures, but if at some point, then I'm hoping it's before February 26th, because by that time,
it better be.
it needs to be
You
before
wanna-
then. We really need to
You
narrow
want
that
at least
number
a
to
week
2.
out for the candidates to withdraw and then throw their support
behind
the same candidate.
behind the same candidate. But can they do it? Can we unify? Can they do it? Can they put themselves to the side for the greater good? Are they able to do that? You know, and obviously, you know, we're
Well,
not
we got
talking.
about 6 weeks to figure that out.
You
So
know,
maybe we better have that candidates forum before the month's over.
yeah, maybe before the month. You know, Black Coffee, you know, anyone that's watching, if you're in support of a candidate, or if you're on their team, if you're on their campaign, tag them in this video. Have them reach out to us, blackcoffeebop@gmail.com, so that we can all sit down. We want to see somebody be
You know what
successful.
would make great sense? If the black candidates in the black community held a pre-election election.
Ah,
The black candidates
that's
were all
something to do.
that is something to
we
do.
should have a pre-election election.
How would we execute something?
Well, you would have to bring the candidates together, and they would certainly have to agree to it because they
Of
have
course.
to participate.
Of course.
If they would agree to participate, the condition would simply be the winner of this election is the candidate. And all of the other candidates agree before the election that whoever that is, we all going behind that one candidate. The people have spoken.
The people have spoken. So I think
And
that's
anybody that stays in the election beyond that
We'll deal with
is a
that.
traitor to our interests.
Exactly.
we'll deal with them later. But okay,
Well, they
so
certainly would not get no support.
they won't get support because
They
Black
wouldn't get no
Coffee is
support.
going to put its
Because we will put them on
endorsement.
blast.
We will put them
We'll
on
have
blast.
Pookie Ray Ray and Little Johnny paying them a visit.
Yeah, we got some people that can pay them a visit. Yeah, I guess, right? So that's a great
You probably
idea.
shouldn't say that on there.
It's a joke. Everybody know we're joking. We're joking. You know. Well, we're all joking. That's not true. That's not true. But certainly, you know, we're going to wrap this up. We want to thank everybody for watching. Thank Dr. Murphy, Ro Davis for joining us today on the Wake Up Hour. We're going to end with a pre-election election amongst all the black candidates. And you may want to be interested in it just to see where you stand. You may not even know. So we'll gather all of the different organizations and leadership organizations. We'll get the communities involved, you know, pinpointing where they are, and give everybody a good chance to see where you stand with your people at the very least. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have support from other races, but at least when it comes to us, where you stand, and let the people select who do they want, and then hopefully they'll be able to allow it and accept it, and let us get a win.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. Chantel.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
all
you,
of you for coming. It's been a pleasure. See you next Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
Next Tuesday.
All right.
All right.
All right.
See
Okay.
you later.
All right.
Have you ever seen something like that happen, a pre-election?
Uh,
Where'd you get that from?
that was, let me see, I'm trying to think, yeah, there is such a thing. No, you know what,